Hey, this is Hammer giving you another battle report of the second round of the 3,000 point tournament. This is my first match ever against a Orcs and Goblins army, so I really didn't know what to expect here. My list is the same, of course, have to keep the same list. For more detail, refer to my last video. So generally we have my Grail Knights and double Paladin unit here on the left, BSB's unit in the center, Grail Relic at the end of the Archer row on the right, my Heroic Killing Blow Generals over there. I've got my 9-pack of Knights of the Realm full command, and then there's a Treb in the far right off the screen. So in the Orc deployment zone there's a settlement of order there, and it has the chapel that makes Bretonnian units stubborn when they're by it. And his leftmost unit is a Squig Herd. He's got a Rock Lobber, 4 Bolt Throwers, a big unit of 18 or so Big Guns. Said they're the most badass infantry. Had 3 attacks, strength 5 or something crazy like that. Behind them is a unit of Bowmen, a unit of 12 Black Orcs. In the center he's got a big unit of 50 Orcs, and his General and BSB are in that unit as well. I don't remember what gear setup they had. He's got another unit of 12 Black Orcs, unit of 20 more Bowmen there in the back. The first chariot on the left is actually his level 4 caster, and then everything else is a 4 chariot there. He's got a Doom Diver, War Machine, and then another unit of 20 Bowmen. So here's my Vanguard move on the left. A lot of War Machines to hunt back there. Especially nice that they're near the stubborn Bretonnian chapel. And here's my Vanguard move on the right. Try to get back there to that Doom Diver. So Orc turn 1. No charges he could really make, so he moves up his main battle line, as you can see. There's nothing else for him to do but just try to crash my lines. On the right, I had positioned my Peg Knights so that every chariot would need a 11, maybe a 10 minimum. Some of them needed a 12 in order to charge me, but all of them failed, which was quite nice. Other than that, he just moves up his Bowman a little bit there in the woods. So his magic was largely dispelled by me, and he shot his Rock Lobber at my BSB's unit, but only killed 1 Knight. So I forgot to mention that his Squig Herd moved into the leftmost building, and I was very glad to see that, because that meant it would take him a turn to get into the building, a turn to get out of the building, and another turn before he could even charge me. So, in my view, just a wasted unit. So my first charge on Brett turn 1, take my Peg Knights into his Rock Thrower there. I move up my heavy hitters, wheel them sharply to the left, hoping to crash down his lines eventually. So here's more of an overview shot. I move my Grail Relic up there to try to hold up the middle a little bit. You can kind of see my plan here. I pretty much gave up the right side of the board. Threw a peg down there. My 9 block of normal Knights of the Realm, just to kind of feign my deployment a little bit. But really, I want to weaken the middle, hold the middle, and then crash the left hard with my 2 elite high units. So, I get my pegs behind his chariot. I had to do a single file formation because there just wasn't enough room for me to maintain my 3 wide. So, on to my magic phase. This is the first game that actually rolled Dwellers Below. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I really hate these type of spells. You know, the Dwellers, the Purple Sun. I just hate things that one-shot people and they can't make saves against. But, you know, this game I decided, if you can't beat them, join them. So I threw a Dwellers Below at his big 15-man Orc unit and just killed a ton of them. And his BSB failed his Dwellers roll. So, yeah, I could see the power of the spell. You know, still felt bad about using it. But I didn't after this happened. Yeah, so my BSB's unit is nowhere to be found. I think I was cursed by the Lady of Bretonnia for using such a dishonorable spell. And I miscast because I cast it with irresistible force. Killed a couple knights, enough to cause a panic test, and I fail my rerollable leadership test and run right off the board. 700 points off the board, turn 1. Yeah. I was pretty worried about how the game would turn out at this point. So in my shooting phase, my bowmen take down 6 black orcs, which was a lot better than they usually do. So at least something to be happy about. Peg Knights easily beat the rock lava and reform to face the rest. So on Orc's turn 2, he charges his bowman unit into my Peg Knights to protect his war machines. And I forgot that stubborn chapel was even there for the rest of the game, but luckily it didn't matter when we got to combat because I held. I know that's out of order, but I forgot to take the picture. So rest of his movement over here on the left, he gets his squig herd out of the house. His big uns and black orcs face me and also back up a little bit, so you need pretty good rolls to make those charges, and he may just flee there. In the center, his other black orc unit and his general's unit tried to charge my Grail Relique, but failed those charges. On the right, he moves his chariots up through the woods normally, so they don't have to worry about dangerous terrain. And in his magic phase, he picks up that rightmost archer unit and places him in the river down by my Treb on the far right. So in the shooting phase, his Doom Diver lands a rock, or whatever it shoots, right on the head of my heroic Killing Blow General, and one-shots him dishonorably. So, oh shit, I'm in trouble. So at this point, you know, I'm still enjoying the game like I always do, but, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, man, this game is probably already lost. So, with that in mind, I decided to just go all out. I'm going to charge everything I can charge. You know, just grab as many points as I can and try and get a little revenge and earn a little respect back. So, that's pretty much what I do. So, Brett turn 2. On the left, I charge my Grails into the 20-man bowman unit. I know I'm going to crush that and at least get those points. Didn't decide to charge my double paladin unit because they're just so far away. So I moved them over there, as you can see, as far away from his big guns as possible. Decided all my shooting targets then would be the Trebs on his big guns and bowmen on his big guns and black orcs, if I forget to mention my shooting later in the game. So here on the right, I just say screw it. I charge my Grail Relique into his unit of black orcs. And I charge my 9 Knights of the Realm there in the river against his 20 bowmen, which actually should be good for me since they're not going to be steadfast. And I'll do more damage than he'll do to me. And my Peg Knights go after his Doom Diver to get revenge for my general. So I had no magic, obviously, and my shooting managed to whittle down the big guns and black orcs a little bit. The Grail combat here, yeah, they just sliced through them gloriously, and the two survivors were run down by my Peg Knights off the board. Decided to reform my Grail Knights 5 wide, so that if his weakened big guns attacked me, I would have a substantial amount of attacks hitting him first. So it was both an offensive and defensive formation against his charge. So here in the bottom right, this is very disappointing. Yeah, the odds are definitely in my favor of crushing this unit. So I got a bit of a rubber lance here. But it's very favorable because this unit is not stubborn or steadfast in the river. So, you know, even though I rubber lanced a little bit, he needed a 4 to stay, and he got it. And so that's definitely devastating for that unit because, you know, my plan was, of course, to run him off the board and protect that unit for another turn. But now they're just going to be countercharged and crushed by his chariots there in the woods. So on Orc turn 3, so he declares charges with his general's unit, the remainder of that Black Orc unit, and the big guns, all on my double paladin unit. And I decide to hold. At this point, I don't want any knight fleeing and dishonoring the memory of my heroic Killing Blow general. So additionally, in the back, his squig herders were out of the charge arc of my Grail Knights and were just too far to charge my double paladin unit. So, only his black orcs managed to get in with my double paladin unit, which I thought was outstanding. Over here, it's just showing that his chariots need very low rolls to get into my Nether Realm unit down there. I kind of failed to take pictures of this side of the board towards the end of the game because things started to get pretty exciting. But basically, they charged him and crushed him. So, he also reformed his squig herd to face the rear of my Grail Knights. And he used his Hand of Gork spell to move his big guns to the flank of my Grail Knights. So in his shooting, 3 of his Goblin bolt throwers just shot Nerf arrows at my Grail Knights. But the last one had some kind of depleted uranium bolt or something. That one bolt thrower tore through 5 Grail Knights. He just kept crushing them, wounding them, and I kept failing my saves. And yeah, it definitely earned its points back right there. So going to close combat with my double paladin unit.
Killing spree.
Yeah, this showed those black orcs who's bad. So even better was this Grail Relic combat. So the first time I charged on my turn, did a couple wounds to his black orcs. He did more back to me, but I held. The second time, on his turn, I didn't have hatred, but I managed to do more wounds than him and beat his black orcs in combat, run him down, and overrun into his level 4 on his chariot. So, good job, Grail Relic. Yeah, couldn't ask for anything better than that. To all those naysayers of the Grail Relic, man, I say watch my last 2 games. So going to Brett turn 3. I apologize for the fuzzy pictures, but here my Grail Knights make what is probably the charge of the match. They're over by the bolt throwers, I needed a 9 to get here, and sure enough, they slam into the flank of his general's unit. My double paladin unit easily hits the front. So if you remember how big this unit was at the beginning of the game, you'll know that there's a lot of points tied up in this unit. And his general is still there. So at the top, I'm still behind, just playing as aggressively as possible. And I say what the hell, and I charge my Peg Knights into his bowman unit. So this picture is just showing one of my trebs took out one of his chariots, which was nice. Pretty much scattered and did nothing all game. So it's nice to get one kill with him. So after close combat in the center, it did pretty well. I whittled him down quite nicely, and I only lost my unit champion. So, yep, another round of combat, and hoping to break that steadfast and break the unit. So in the top combat, I found a little bit surprising. My Peg Knights charged in, and I really expected to do a fair amount of wounds, enough that I would beat him in combat, and at least make him take a leadership test. But I rubber lanced it, and surprisingly, he actually ran me down, despite my 3d6 movement. And in the Grail Relique combat, his level 4 is beating up on me, but as they've been doing in the past game, they're just holding him up. Exactly what I need him to do. So this is the point in the game where my picture-taking ability starts to fail miserably. But we're getting to the point where there's so few units left on the board that turns are going very quickly. So in his turn, there was no charging, no significant shooting. His magic phase, he moved that bowman unit up at the top that had beat my Peg Knights down next to my double paladin unit, engaged in the center combat. And so when we get to the combat phase on Orc turn 4,
Monster kill!
Oh yeah, an absolutely huge victory. My double paladins were just true champions. I think each of them got 3 hits through, and they just took out a slew of orcs. One of my Grail champions fell to his general, but at least soaked up some of his attacks, and pursued with both units. My Grail Knights ran him down. So this was absolutely huge. And in the Grail Relique combat, my peasants were ground down so that the Grail Relique itself has 5 wounds remaining. This turned out to be beneficial because as my double paladin unit is positioned, since I won this combat on his turn, I'm set up on my turn to charge his level 4 with that unit. So just couldn't have gone any better for me here. So on Brett turn 4, my Peg Knight up there at the top had come back on the board earlier. The unit had gotten shot up by bolt throwers, but there's 1 remaining, and that's plenty to take down another bolt thrower itself. So you see the 2-man unit there in the center. That's the remainder of his big guns. So I concentrated every treb shot and every bow shot I could at that unit, and I just could not finish him off. Yeah, very disappointing. I really, really want those points, but my shooting just barely couldn't get it done. In terms of what's going on in the bottom of the board that I failed to take a picture of, so his chariots that had originally won by the river are now, running down my lines and taking out trebs. So, going to the combat in Bretonnian turn 4. So as I mentioned, I charge my double paladin unit into his level 4.
Godlike!
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That unit is definitely becoming godlike. So, getting his level 4 is no small pickup. A lot of level 4s are going to be 300 plus points, and this guy was riding a special chariot, so really, really important pickup there. Additionally, they blew past the charge arc of the bowman down there. So on Orc turn 5, his chariots are crashing through my trebs at the bottom of the board, and I think they have one remaining, which his squig herd is about to charge on his turn 6 and take down. So up here, on his turn, he reformed his bowman to face my double paladin unit. Then on my turn 5, I've swift reformed my double paladin unit and parked him right in front of his bowman unit here. Because he was in charge range of my Grell Relique, and at this point, I just wanted to save those points. So, there's no dishonor in peasants running, so he doesn't violate the rule I set for myself earlier. So this is still in my turn 5. So at this point, I still think I'm behind. I got some nice pickups, but I wasn't adding up the points, so I didn't think it was enough to make up for what I'd lost, especially now that my trebs were dropping like flies. So I was super frustrated with not being able to kill these last 2 big uns with my shooting. So my lone remaining Peg Knight with 1 wound had crushed through 2 more bolt throwers, and on my turn he was free to charge into these big uns. So I decided it was worth the risk because I really thought I needed to pick up points at this point. So I got his flank, I got a charge. I feel like I have a chance there as long as I make some saves. Additionally, my 2 remaining Grail Knights, I lost 1 from his bolt throwers, make a nice long charge into one of his bolt throwers. That should be an easy overrun into his remaining bolt thrower. But after close combat, on my turn 5, I kill one of the big uns, and I just missed the saves on the last wound that the very last big un puts on me. And so I lose that unit of Peg Knights. So, super frustrating here. Really could have been a glorious moment, but I still think it may have been worth the risk based on the information I had at the time. So my Grail Knights, as I said, easily crushed the bolt thrower and get an overrun to pick up some easy points. So on Orc's turn 6, sure enough, my Grail's overrun and crushed the remaining bolt thrower on his turn. And the last remaining biggin stands there, taunting me and laughing at me for my failures. So this is what it looks like at the bottom of the board. As I mentioned, he was just, crushing through my trebs by the end. See, one of the archer units ran off the board way earlier in the game when my general died. But the remaining one you see locked up with his chariot very fortunately held until the end of the game, so I could conserve those points, which was very nice. And if you remember, I had parked my double paladin unit in front of his archer unit in the center of the board in order to protect my Grail Relief. So wanted to force him to charge me, and sure enough he did. And in the last decisive combat of the game,
holy shit!
Absolutely glorious victory for for the double paladin unit. Wow. My two paladins once again just cut the orcs down like they were grass, and the unit ran them down to pick up a nice number of points to end the game. So, just incredible. This unit was rock solid all game. I only lost 2 knights out of the unit, and they earned probably triple or more than triple their points in terms of the combats they were involved in. So, what an end. Just incredible. But despite that, I still had a feeling that I was going to be down in points. So, we added up all the points, and I ended up winning by 224 points. Just could not believe it. Recounted everything again, and sure enough, I took a minor victory, which was enough to move on in the tournament. So this was by far the most intense and wildest game of Warhammer I've ever played. It was just full of strange events that had a huge impact on the outcome of the game. So, it started out horribly for me, losing my 700-point BSB's unit. But I got Dwellers off, and it killed his BSB, who needed anything but a 6 to survive Dwellers. And so, who knows what his rerolls could have done over the course of the game. They could have affected the final combat when I double charged with my Grails and double Paladin unit. They could have prevented my Grail Relique from humiliating the Black Orcs and running into his level 4, which then set up my Paladin units killing his level 4. So, just so many events like that that could have, turned the tide one way or another. My failure to kill his big guns with my shooting was one. My failure to kill his archers in the river with my Knight of the Realm unit. My needless charges of my Peg Knights to finish off his big guns and one of his archer units. When I was actually ahead at that point in the game, I could have saved those points and comfortably taken victory, but I just didn't know. And of course, my final victory over his last archer unit, was the difference between a draw and a victory. So, just absolutely wild and fun game. So, tactically, I was pretty happy with my plan. I wanted to use the center fire technique that I used against the elves once again, since we had such an open board. So I think if this was a game where, everything went according to plan, I think my plan would have worked quite well. So all the power on the left and the shooting and anvils in the middle would have really played out well, I think. So my pegs get into his bolt throwers and mess with his war machines, and Squig Herd wouldn't come out until turn 3 or whatever. And I think if my BSB's unit had gotten into a meaningful combat, I could have made this a lot less close. But of course, that's not how it turned out. But overall, I was satisfied with my deployment and the plan I had going into the game. So taking this victory actually moves me into the championship, because this is an 8-man tournament. And guess who I get to face in the championship? The Ogre player. Yeah, the same guy that's been wiping the floor with my knights. So, oof, that's gonna be a rough game. But looking forward to at least attempting to take down his army. And as a final formality that should go without saying, I present to you the glorious, the honorable, the undefeated men of the match.